We've checked in a bit with State, we've checked in a bit with Carolina, and certainly with Duke. Let's head east and check in on camp for the first time in this preseason. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline is the pregame and postgame host for East Carolina Football University broadcast, Philip Pilkington. Philip, how you doing, friend?
I'm doing great, Paul. How are you?
Good. Glad to hear that you had a good summer. We had a solid one here on our end. So far, so good, I'm assuming, for ECU. I think the one thing that you never want to hear out of camp is someone with a soft tissue injury or someone getting hurt. But right now it feels like Blake Harrell's team seems to be in fairly okay shape.
Yeah, they are. I mean, every now and again you'll see a guy, he'll be at practice, a guy will be over there on the bike or getting a little extra work with the trainer. But, that's part of it. They had a 6-day work week last week with no walkthroughs. It was a very tough week of practice. He said it was going to be the most physically demanding week of practice. And he reported at the end that there were no official injuries. It was just, a bump or a bruise here or there. A couple guys have been limited for maybe a day or two, but no one actually out of practice yet. So really good news on the East Carolina front.
All right, so Philip, Coach Harrell always talks about now that he's embraced a little bit more of the transfer portal and what is being done with the group of 6 teams. He talks about microwaving a team, right, and putting these guys together as quickly as possible when he probably has 5 or 6 new starters on defense, but on offense pretty much had to turn over the whole thing. In your opinion, after watching practice and seeing these early walkthroughs because of the heat that we've been experiencing here in the Carolinas, has he done enough to microwave this team to make sure that they're at least worthy of their top 5 prediction in the American Conference?
I definitely think he has. They've constructed this roster very well. They went out in the receiver room and got a lot of different types of bodies. They got the big kid, Jeremiah Melvin from Wake Forest. He's going to be hopefully a really good red zone threat. They've got some smaller guys. They brought in Ray Joseph from Miami. He was the backup to Malachi Tony. He played a decent amount. He's going to be your get the ball out in space and let him go work. And then, the offensive line, they lost a lot there. They only have one returning starter up there, and they were able to go out and get guys who are experienced at playing Division I FBS college football. So I think the roster is very well constructed, especially on the defensive side of things. For sure, I think there's a lot of depth defense. Offense, still interested to see where that depth is, especially on the offensive line. But I think the receivers, the running backs, and the tight ends room for East Carolina should have plenty of depth, and it looks like a football team is ready to go out there and contend for a conference title.
Philip Pilkington, pregame, postgame host for East Carolina University football, joining us here on Next Step here on 99.9 The Fan. So, Philip, you've been at practices. A lot of the questions, obviously, will come at quarterback. So let's talk about Mitch Griffiths first. Griffiths, who's finding himself at least in a quarterback competition with Emory Williams, the transfer from Miami. Griffiths is well-traveled. He has plenty of starts under his belt, certainly at Power 4, certainly Group of 6. What's his command of the offense? I think Harrell kind of calls him kind of just another coach that happens to be in the room and still happens to have eligibility.
It's exactly what he is. And when you see, it's funny, the owner of our radio station here, Henry Hinton, was at football luncheon with him yesterday, and he's like, I swear that kid's like 28 or 29 years old, right? I said, no, he's only 24. He looks the part of a grown man. He acts the part of a grown man. And when he speaks, he's not a guy who's loud and in your face, but when he speaks, it seems like everybody really listens. He's going to command the huddle really well if he does win this job. And you can tell when he's dropping back, and it is a full 11-on-11 type situation, he's processing things at a very good rate. The game is happening very slow for him. He can see the field. He knows where his guys are supposed to be. He understands what the defense is trying to do. I mean, you don't want to compare him to any of the guys in the NFL, right? Because he's not to the level of these guys, but almost like a Peyton Manning-esque where it does process very fast for him.
Emory Williams, forever the understudy in Miami, right? It's and again, if you're going to be an understudy, you might as well be an understudy to guys like Carson Beck, who's playing professionally now, and Darian Mensah, who was brought in. He wasn't going to get the shot there, so he moves to ECU. What's the skill level that he brings to the table that actually makes this a quarterback competition in Greenville?
I think he's got the more raw talent. He's the big body. He's the guy who can throw the football a long way. He's the guy who can, really put it in tight windows. We've kind of talked about it here amongst the media and just fans talking throughout the season. It seems like he's probably your higher ceiling guy, but he's also probably your lower floor guy because he doesn't have as much experience. How fast does he process things? We're not really sure, like we are with Mitch Griffiths. But this is a kid who is just a freak athlete and a dang good football player. So I think it's his just stature, size, and just ability to push the ball down the field that really is what's making this a true quarterback competition. And Blake Harrell said on Saturday, after the first scrimmage, he said there's starting to be separation. He didn't tell us who was starting to separate, but I think this is a really tough decision. This kind of takes me back to 1970 with the Dallas Cowboys when Tom Landry was having to decide between the older, more experienced Craig Morton and the young guy coming out of Navy, Roger Staubach. And that was a quarterback competition that lasted until midway through the season, and that's what this really reminds me of.
Philip Pilkington joining us here on the Heister Automobile Group hotline, host, pregame, postgame host for ECU as they ECU Pirates open up with Alabama Week 1 on national TV in September. Talking about the Pirates here as they get things moving. So in the American Conference, we saw a lot of turnover, right, when it came to coaches. Memphis coach Ryan Satterfield goes to Arkansas. Tulane coach John Sumrall makes the move east, Power 4. Same thing happens with South Florida and North Texas. The consistency comes at the top at this point. East Carolina happens to be one of those teams. Navy is the other. Is it fair for that projected order of finish to have East Carolina that down to number 5 in terms of the median where they put them, or should they actually be higher just based on the turnover that I've talked about?
Yeah, I think the tough thing, obviously it's good to have a coach who's been there before, but rosters turn over so much nowadays in college football. You might have a returning coach, but if you've flipped 80% of your roster, does it really feel like you have a returning coach? I don't know. So I think it's fair. You can make an argument for those teams to really fall anywhere in that top 5. And with unbalanced scheduling, that has a lot to do with it too. It's who gets who at home, who doesn't play who. That has a lot of the, I think, at least when I'm doing my preseason polls, I have to take that into consideration. So, yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, they could be a little higher, of course, but at the end of the day, look, the preseason polls are what they are. You've got to go out there and you got to perform. And I think part of the reason they might be as low as they are is just because of, they always say if you have 2, you have none when it comes to that quarterback room. We're not still sure who the starting quarterback is going to be at East Carolina, so I wonder if that might have a lot to do with the fact that they're not higher.
Well, their schedule does favor them a bit. We talk about favorable schedules certainly in the ACC when we cover State and Carolina and Duke, but when you look at East Carolina's schedule, they do avoid Navy on the schedule this year in terms of rotation, and they do have fairly favorable games at home. So what is the expectation of the Pirates fan base? Are they expecting to challenge and be there on December 5th in that American Conference Championship, perhaps even hosting that thing at home?
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of expectations around here to be playing a conference game in December. I think it's going to come down to 3 games. There's a Thursday night game on the road at Memphis. There's a Friday night game at home against South Florida, and then a road game at Army the second to last week of the season. And I think if you can go 2-1 in those games, you feel very good that you could be in a conference championship game. I don't see a true front runner in this conference. Somebody could go 8-0, but I think a pair of 7-1 teams will probably be the ones who are competing for a conference title. Now, the tough thing comes, you could have 3 or 4 teams at 7-1, and then you're getting into some really wacky tiebreakers. And in the triangle, you guys know all about wacky tiebreakers with Duke getting into the ACC championship game a year ago. So then you kind of have to leave it up to the odds. But honestly, yeah, I think they definitely can contend because other than those 3 games, you feel confident that if you go out there and you play your brand of football, you have no reason you do not win your other 5 conference games. Temple is going to be better. I think FAU is going to be a little better, but if they play their brand of football, they'll be okay. So I think the key thing, like I said, go 2-1 in those contests, and you should feel pretty good.
Philip Pilkington, pregame, postgame host for East Carolina football. Always good to talk with you, friend, and we'll catch up as the season gets going on.
Thanks for having me on, Paul, Max. Have a good one, guys. Good to talk to you.
All right, Phil Pilkington, ECU pregame, postgame host. As the Pirates get ready for the opening part of their season, they've been having 5 a.m. practices, Max, because of the weather. And there's no indoor practice facility there. They're building one. But they've been rising and shining for sure. September 5, they open up at Alabama, nationally televised game. I'm not sure you can get money on that one right now. It might be 30. It might be 30 plus.
Well, look, an underdog beat Bama in the first game of the year last year, so you never know.
You certainly never know.
I'm Max Goren with 3 things you need to know right now from 99.9 The Fan. The Carolina Panthers officially signed veteran tight end Darren Waller yesterday, assigning him jersey number 35, according to Mike Kay of ESPN. In a corresponding move, Carolina waived offensive lineman Josh Gray, as well as linebacker Nick Hampton. ESPN's Shams Charania reported yesterday that the Buss family voted to sell their remaining shares in the Los Angeles Lakers to Josh Kushner and Bob Iger, but Jeannie Buss is contesting her siblings' vote. Wanting to remain the controlling owner of the Lakers, Jeannie reportedly did not respond to the family vote on whether to sell the team. After losing last week's series against Memphis, the Durham Bulls hit the road for a series against the Gwinnett Stripers tonight. Bulls coverage is available on 620 AM Buzz Sports Radio, 99.9 FM HD2, and WRAL News Plus, with first pitch scheduled for 6:35 p.m. For all the latest news on your favorite teams, download the 99.9 The Fan app or visit 999thefan.com.
We're all having a great time. I don't want to squash dreams today. I just talked about the hopefulness of sports. Like that, just kind of like that feel-good kind of moment that you need. We talked about ECU football, how there's some hope, the most dangerous 4-letter word on the planet. There was some hope within Pirate Nation that they can be a contender this year in the American Conference. And then I hear on a podcast this morning, the NFL Commissioner, Roger Goodell, says he wants international NFL teams. He believes this will happen on a regular basis. You know, this year, they're playing 9 games internationally. Like right off the top of this, we're playing in Australia. See, the NFL is playing in Australia this year for the first time. And the Jonas Brothers are going to be like the headliner. And then they're playing in Brazil, where Ricky Martin is going to be the halftime entertainment. Like, there's no lack of, like, celebrities that want to be a part of international football. I just wonder, and I believe the commissioner's overplaying his hand here when he talks about international football. Now, with a caveat, if he's saying international football is Toronto, Ontario, Canada, or Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, of which they would need a new dome stadium there to make that happen, sure. Mexico City at Estadio Azteca, sure. I believe it could work if you had a North American footprint. You're still dealing with time zones. The travel isn't as hard, and it still makes the international stuff outside of the continent a must-see kind of desirable scheduled event that you can get behind. But the commissioner does not dabble in history, I believe, where he only has to run back to the Raleigh-Durham Skyhawks of the World League of American Football, in which they played teams from Barcelona, Spain, and Frankfurt, and London for all of 1 year back in the early 90s. That morphed into NFL Europe, in which in NFL Europe, 5 of the main teams that were in operation from the start to the end, because they started with more than 5. They started with 9. 5 of the teams that were still in existence were in Germany only. That was it. And then they had 1 team in Amsterdam. There was a team in Barcelona. There was a team in Edinburgh and Glasgow, Scotland, in the UK. And there was a team in London, which became the London Monarchs, which was like the English Monarchs, which lasted like a handful of seasons. It didn't work. It just didn't work. And I know there's a lot more TV coverage these days. There's a lot more streaming coverage. I'm sure there's a handful of podcasters within Europe, Germany, and London and whatnot who have a desire to see professional American football. Like we saw it when the Panthers went over there a couple seasons ago. Like, there are fans over there. There are international fan bases that get, all excited and lathered up when the American footballers show up. But it's not sustainable. It's absolutely not sustainable. And they see dollar signs. Roger Goodell sees dollar signs. Thinks this is going to be the most amazing things ever. We're going to be playing international on a regular basis. We will establish bases in Europe on a regular basis, wherever he plans these will be. The NBA is trying the exact same thing with ownership with an NBA Europe. Those teams are not playing in the United States. The Paris team, the Vienna team, the Rome team, the Athens team, they're not coming to the United States to play. That's the difference. They are staying there. There's a limited audience for this.
Yeah, I don't know how obsessed with football other countries would be. Because other countries, they have football, like they have soccer, and they already like that. I don't know if these other countries are going to just go crazy for the NFL like we do in America.
If it was a singular team, like that goes over there when they play overseas, these teams, like a million guys show up with different jerseys. Like fans show up with different jerseys. I mean, it's stuff that's, Brett Favre jerseys are still prevalent, or Kurt Warner jerseys, Herschel Walker and Bo Jackson. Like they show up en masse in these stadiums. Like there's not one kind of dialed in. I suppose if you had kind of one school of thought in London, you could get things going. It would take forever, though, for it to like take root. I'm not poo-pooing the fact that there are NFL fans around the world. I just don't think the National Football League, as it exists, can do that kind of expansion. Thinking that there are another, let's assume you've got to add more than just one team, 2 teams, that there are 110 quality NFLers that's going to make it like amazing. There are teams, and you saw it, Carolina Panthers fans, and I'm not picking on Carolina Panthers fans because it's still a raw wound, a 2-win season. You can see that there's just not enough talent and certainly not enough coaching out there to make it happen to expand. It just doesn't exist. And I'm not out here crushing dreams. I don't want to squash the things. But if the only reason to do so is ambition and money, I'm not sure that's the play for the NFL when you have a house that still needs cleaning up here stateside. Go to Mexico City, go to Toronto. Those feel like reasonable asks of your players' union, of your fan base, because I can still go to those games. Traveling overseas to go see London play the Seattle Seahawks, I'm not sure.